You are listening to the Heartland Author Podcast. I am Aaron Apollo Camp. For this episode, I had the opportunity to interview Tonya Eberhart and Michael Carr. Tonya and Michael are the authors of the BrandFace series of books about personal branding. Tonya wrote the first book in the series, BrandFace. Tonya and Michael co-wrote two more books in the series, BrandFace for Real Estate Professionals and BrandFace for Entrepreneurs. Tonya co-wrote BrandFace for Home Improvement Professionals with Ron Greenbaum. I'm here with Tonya Eberhart and Michael Carr, who are the authors of the BrandFace books about personal and business branding. Tonya and Michael, welcome to the Heartland Author Podcast.
Thank you so much, Aaron. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you for having us on.
Tonya, I'll start with you. Feel free to introduce yourself to our listeners.
Absolutely. So my name's Tonya Eberhart. I am the founder of BrandFace, and I started my career journey in the media world, radio specifically. And when I got into the radio world, I was only about 21 or 2 years old. And if you can think back to that age, nobody listens to you. Nobody cares what you have to say. And when you knock on doors asking people for tens, maybe even hundreds of thousands of dollars to advertise their business, they look at you like you're crazy. So I realized then that if I wanted people to view me differently, I had to change the way I presented myself. So I became one of the first radio sales reps in the country to have my own website. I started presenting myself differently as a true authority and professional in the industry, and doors opened up everywhere. And so I thought, wow, if this can work for me, it can work for my clients. So I started bringing them into the studio, having them cut their own radio commercials. And then over the years, it turned into helping them with radio, television, newspaper, and most importantly, these days, internet, with their personal brand altogether. And that brought us, long story short, to 2012, 13, when BrandFace was born. And that's actually when I met Michael.
Okay, Michael, feel free to introduce yourself to our listeners.
All right. Thank you, sir. I'm an auctioneer by trade, born just north of Atlanta, about 45 minutes out of the city in the suburbs. I had a chance to be an engineer. I wanted to be an auctioneer. My mom cried, didn't know how I was going to feed my family. And we laugh about that now. But the mentor that taught me the auction business told me to get my real estate license, make a little extra money selling a farm sale or something like that on a Saturday. So I did. I was a circuit auctioneer in Georgia, Tennessee, South Carolina, Alabama, North Carolina, a little bit of Florida. And then we started selling off farms in those areas. And so I was equipped when the mortgage debacle hit the United States, starting in 2007 and 8, and then, coming to a pinnacle in 2009 and 10. And I teamed up with a company out of Irvine, California, and we went after the Bear Stearns residential mortgage portfolio to try to auction that off. And we did so. I ended up licensed in 31 states, and I've sold over 100,000 residential properties in my career. Not that that matters much to anybody but me, but I opened up a small brokerage when we were done. Good auctioneers always working themselves out of a job. And so when I came back to my hometown, I was still a young man and said, well, I got to do something. I bought a piece of property, and the agent that sold me the property, she and I worked so good together. She said, let's open up a brokerage together. And I'm like, well, I never really wanted to do that, but if you'll help me, I'll do it. And we did. And then 2 weeks later, she said, your marketing stinks and we need help. And you need to talk to my niece. That ended up being Tonya. And Tonya called me up on the phone and said, I don't know if I'm supposed to call you or you're supposed to call me, but here you need some help with marketing. She sold me marketing, Aaron, but she gave me branding. I didn't even realize there was a need or a difference or understand any of that. She took me to task, and I realized right quick that branding is the only way that a good entrepreneur can, a service facing entrepreneur can differentiate themselves from their competitors. And so I applied. I literally did everything she told me to do. And I tell people now the secret to my success was just listening to Tonya. And I hope your listeners do too.
I like that advice.
Tonya, I'm going to give you the next question. Without spoiling too much about your solo book called BrandFace, what is that book about?
It's about how to become the face of your business and a star in your industry. And literally, that's what it says on the cover. It's about learning how to, as it says on the back of all of our books, people don't do business with a logo, they do business with a person. And so it's about how to become the best face of your business so people will connect with the human side of your business.
Michael, you co-wrote with Tonya BrandFace for real estate professionals and BrandFace for entrepreneurs. Without spoiling too much of both of those books, what are they about?
So I did apply. I gave Tonya, the backstory, Aaron, is I gave Tonya a lot of trouble when she called me. I was not easy on her. I was very ugly. In fact, I told her, I said, yes, I've had 4 of you already. I don't need a 5th. That's exactly what I told her. But me and you talking, behind the curtain, I was hoping that she would be different. And she blew my mind in her knowledge about how to reach the ideal customer, which every entrepreneur needs the customer. Like you can't grow without a steady stream of money. And that steady stream of money comes from the confidence that clients and customers give you. And nobody in 30 years of doing business has ever articulated that as cleanly and as perfectly as Tonya did to me. And so I was in San Bernardino, California, when I decided that I would absolutely do business with her. And she began to teach me those things. And once I sort of took, was it President Garfield that said, give the right man the job and don't mess with him while he's doing it. I that's what I did. When I made a decision that she knew what she was talking about, I pretty much handed all the marketing over to her, and we spent hours interviewing. She would interview me. She would dig down to what drove me, where I came from, why I did what I did, what led me to become, where I had ended up, all the motivating factors and all of that. And then she also spent a lot of time saying, hey, we need to go after your ideal customer, your perfect customer. And we need to do these things. I thought it was superfluous at the time. And I was just like, well, I'm sitting across from a beautiful person, and, we're probably drinking a glass of wine. And, if she wants to ask me questions all night long, I'm going to eat a good dinner, and and I'm probably going to pay for it because she was a consultant. But at the end of the day, I thought that's what it was. But then it began to dawn on me. I'm like, well, this makes absolute sense. And so because I handed it over to her, and if she told me to turn left, I turned left. And she told me to turn right, I turned right. She asked me to co-write the second book specifically for my industry. And I was honored, of course. And I'm like, yeah, I would love to do that. And I did it. And it became a #1 bestseller and international business bestseller. And it has helped thousands of real estate agents, tens of thousands of real estate agents across the country and in other countries to do the same thing as we did. And we continue to do every day. And then she had another client that wrote a book about home improvement, probably one of the biggest home improvement contractors in the nation. His name's Ron Greenbaum, fantastic human being. She introduced me to him. But then she came back to me and said, hey, let's write one for entrepreneurs, because anybody in a service-facing industry can utilize these principles to gain the notoriety necessary to tell your story, your why to your perfect clientele, and want them to do business with you even before they reach out to you. And so we did that, and that became a #1 bestseller also. So I was just fortunate enough to get introduced to her.
Tonya, as Michael mentioned, you co-wrote BrandFace for home improvement professionals with Ron Greenbaum. What was it like to work with Ron on a book writing project?
Actually, it was really nice, because what I did was I sat him down and interviewed him, and I took copious notes, and then I said, okay, this is what you said. Is this okay? And then he would take one last look at it and make a few little edits, and it was done. It was pretty much the way I did it with Michael, but Michael wasn't necessarily an interview. You actually wrote it and sent it to me, and then I edited it. It was the other way around with Ron. So every human's like different in how they process information or how they want to get it out. But it was really a great journey. And I knew that these two gentlemen had something so valuable to share for their industry, that they were at the top of their industry. So I could not go wrong either direction. So it was really nice and a lot smoother than you would ever expect.
Okay, Michael, this next question's for you. Are all of the BrandFace books a part of a series, or are they just standalone books with a common branding?
Great question, Aaron. It's actually both. You can read one book and pull the gold, if you will, out of the mine on each individual book. You can read them in a series. And if you read them in a series, what you're going to find is how it applies to so many other industries. If you read them standalone, they are going to be specific to those industries. Nobody is going to teach you more about home improvement than Ron Greenbaum in the United States. I find myself honored to be lumped in with that in real estate. So I would say the answer is both, because the principles for branding do not change. They are the same. Even if you'll allow me the conjecture that it's the same if you are a CEO of a Fortune 100 company and you have a fantastic bio. I can tell you nobody on earth would write that bio better than Tonya Eberhart. And people invest hundreds of millions of dollars on Wall Street based on those things alone, right? But and we follow CEOs. We invest in Wall Street because we know this experience level, this personal drive of CEOs, CFOs, COOs, CIOs, CDOs, right? These people build companies. They're no different than if you're the landscaper who is in a small town in America and just wants, 2, 3, 4 crews working for them. It's the same principle. And if you read any one of the books in the series, you're going to find those
basic principles,
basic forever principles, immutable laws, if I could steal from the immutable laws of marketing.
Yep. Al Reese and Jack Trout
book that is so fantastic. These things stay the same, whether you're a podcaster, a coach, author, a speaker. If you're forward facing to your customers, then the BrandFace principles are going to apply to you no matter which book you read.
I'll ask Tonya the next question. Are the BrandFace books, are they self-published, traditionally published, or published by a hybrid press?
Okay, so the original one was published by a publishing company, a friend of mine that had a publishing company. All the rest of them are self-published. And what I realized was I looked very hard, and this is a great question, Aaron, because I looked very hard at the purpose of the books. And I thought, okay, it'd be nice to be like who's like a world-renowned author. I'm blanking on this right now, but let's say Stephen King, right? It'd be nice to be a Stephen King and make millions and millions and millions on becoming an author. But when you are doing something like a guide or something very educational, informational, and instructive in a book, the chances of you becoming a millionaire based off of book sales only are pretty much zero, right? Unless you spend a lot of money to promote that book, and then then you can see where you end up. But I really wanted to make sure that we did the books as a credibility tool. It wasn't about selling books. It wasn't about the number of them sold. It was about the fact that I knew enough about this topic and my co-authors knew enough about this topic that we could become an authority in that topic. And as such, that would help elevate us to stages, to podcast interviews, to clients, to certain type of clients that were
Workshops.
Attracted to the fact. Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
We rather than selling millions of dollars worth of books, we've sold millions of dollars worth of workshops.
Yeah.
From those books.
Exactly. That's a great way of saying it. It's like, I didn't expect to become, most people don't ever become rich off of the number of books they sell. They become rich based off of what they sell because they have a book.
Mm-hmm.
Michael, my next question will go to you. Why do 90% of experts get personal branding all wrong?
Aaron, you're nailing it on the questions. So Tonya and I, as business people, we do very prudent business things that other predecessors have taught us to do. So just yesterday, we Googled personal branding. And I think the first number that came up was
11 million or something.
No, it was 11 billion.
Was it? Okay.
Search returns on social, in media.
In Google.
Because personal branding is, it's almost become a cliche, right? Like if you want to build a website and you go to Wix, right? They'll build you a nice website. You can start at $400 or whatever. You can pay $10,000 if you want, whatever you want your website to be. But they're going to tell you all over there, we're going to help you build your brand. I'm in the real estate business. You can go and Google NAR, right? National Association of Realtors. They're going to teach you how to build your brand as a realtor. You can go to Google. They'll teach you how to build your brand. You can go to YouTube. They'll teach you how to build your brand. They'll teach you. It doesn't matter where you go. Branding, personal branding. You know what we found very, very interesting was, Aaron, we could not find anybody that specialized in personal branding. And that is where we find ourselves in the world that we live in right now. I think that a massive swath of people understand that personal branding is important, but they refuse, I think, from a natural order in themselves to reduce that down to what that really means to my client. Because it doesn't matter whether we have a podcast, whether we're speaking in front of people, whether we've written a book, whether we have a business or whatnot. We make money based on how important and valuable that is to that person that receives that. And if that person receiving that thinks that that is valuable, then they clutch it. Right. So personal branding has reached a point where it is almost so superfluous in everything that we say. Looking for the people that are defining that has become harder and harder to find. So I hope I answered your question. Personal branding is massively important to your client, to the person at the end of your transaction, because they want to do business with a person. And it doesn't matter where they stretch inside the line. They really want to know. You want to know who's cleaning your house. You want to know who's cutting your yard. You want to know who's publishing your book. You want to know who's standing in front of you. You want to know these things. And the more we know about them personally, the more connected we are to them. And that's what makes it work. But if you Google personal branding, it's going to be such a wide swath that the definition of it is still, I think, yet to come. And we hope we really have a powerful word in how that's defined in the future.
Tonya, I'm going to ask a question that's related to the previous one I asked Michael. What is the difference between branding and marketing?
Great question, Aaron. We simplified that, I think. And I look at marketing as utilizing various marketing vehicles or channels to get a message, an image out to your potential customer. But the message that you put into those marketing channels is your brand. So whatever message goes into Google so that Google shows the results that you want, whatever message goes into any kind of marketing that you do, that is the brand. And so to Michael's point, when a lot of people talk about, oh, we can help you build your brand doing this and build your brand and build your brand, and come to find out they build websites. They don't build brands. So there's a big, big difference there between, okay, are you building my brand? And this is what I want everybody listening to this to really ask out loud to the person who with whom you're speaking when they say, I can help you build your brand. Okay, are you going to help me build my brand, or are you selling me something that will help me promote my brand? Because building a website is just promoting your brand. Getting on YouTube and doing videos is promoting your brand. Anything you do on social media is promoting your brand. You actually have to build the brand before you can have something to promote on those marketing channels.
Michael, my next question is going to go to you. You and Tonya were two of the contributing authors out of many for the Podmatch Guest Mastery and Podmatch Host Mastery books. And what was it like for both of you? And Tonya can add in anything that she would have to say on this. What was it like for both of you to work on large collaborative writing projects?
It was an honor. For sure. Like to even be asked to be a part of that was fantastic. We welcome it. You know, I think that living in the podcast and author, coach, speaker space, you know, we appreciate when somebody recognizes that maybe we have something to say about the subject matter. I learned that from Tonya. So I really felt like a double honor because I was really invited to the table because of what she had taught me from many years prior, learning and developing those concepts. So I hope that answers your question. It was a huge honor. And to be involved in that was really great. We love the podcast space. I gotta say, we can talk to people like you, people all over the country, people all over the world. It is absolutely fascinating to me. And that we live in a world where I can talk to you in Illinois, I can talk to somebody else in France, and somebody else in Fiji, somebody else in Colombia, somebody else in Mexico, somebody else in Canada, somebody else in Russia. It doesn't matter. I think this is fantastic. We love being a part of it. It is a huge honor.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Tonya, I'm going to give you the next question. You and Michael co-host the Be Bold Branding podcast. What can listeners expect from a typical episode of your podcast?
So we do two different types of podcasts. We have guests on, and the type of guests we have on are what we call coaches, consultants, and experts that are on the rise. In other words, they are either just building a business or they have a business that they're trying to scale. And they're really sharing what they have done and what they have learned in scaling that business, and kind of even where they might have faltered when it comes to their personal brand. And then we have solo episodes that are actually more educational in nature. We'll teach 5 ways you do this and 3 reasons you don't want to do this. And so that's our expertise coming out and doing this for so many years. So I'd say any kind of personal branding tips or advice to help people get to that next level and help them realize too where the problems are and where the challenges are.
Now, this is a question either of you or both of you can answer, and this is the final question I have for this interview. What is the best advice that y'all could give to someone who is starting a personal brand for the first time?
Okay, you want me to take it first?
Yeah, you get it.
Okay, so my first thing would be realize that there is something very unique and special about you, but but nobody's going to know it unless you put it out there. One of the biggest mistakes that people make is waiting until somebody meets you to learn what your personal brand is all about. 98% of people actually meet your brand before they ever meet you. In this highly digitized world that we live in, they're going to see an email from you. They're going to see a post on social media. They may land on your website after a Google visit. All of those different ways they become exposed to your presence before they ever get a chance to meet you. So think about it this way. Most business is lost because we lose even the opportunity to have a discussion about doing business with somebody if we don't have our brand pulled together and tell people who we serve, how we serve them, what qualifies us to serve them, and how it makes their life better, and what makes us different in the brand and message that we put out there in the world. So I would say make sure your brand is built and considered carefully before you even start putting it anywhere. Otherwise, how do you even know what to put anywhere?
Yeah, and I would follow up on that, Aaron. And saying the exact same thing, maybe in a different spin. We see a lot of people say, "Well, I'm going to go ahead and get some clients. I'm going to get some work. I'm going to make some money, and then I'm going to build my brand." Well, you're building your brand every time you shake a hand with somebody. You're building your brand every time you make a sales pitch. You're building your brand every time you start a podcast, every time you make a post, every time. Do that first. Dial it in and be bold about it. It will pay you dividends. I promise you. I spent 20 years thinking that marketing was just throwing stuff against the wall and hoping it was sick, until Tonya taught me that if you dial it in, if you have that correct message and you point that message directly at the person that needs to hear it, then all of a sudden those marketing dollars make sense. All of a sudden, the money that you spend to promote your podcast, to promote your book, to promote your speaking opportunities, your coaching opportunities, or whatever other service industry you're doing, all of a sudden you can count that. And you can say, I spent X and I got X back. And when you can get to that, then you can grow a business. So I really encourage people, think about your brand, read the books, do what Tonya gifted me, and you can start to build whatever dream that you have. And then I would say, be bold about it. Just go after it, and you'll get it back in return.
Tonya and Michael, you two were amazing and informative guests for this podcast, and I thank you both for appearing on the Heartland Author Podcast.
Well, Aaron, I want to say fantastic questions. And if I could speak directly to your audience, I will say you guys need to follow, subscribe. You need to give the Google reviews to Aaron. He's a fantastic interviewer. Aaron, you did. I love the questions. Very poignant. Thank you.
Heartland is appropriately named. Thank you so much for having us on, Aaron.
Tonya and Michael were very insightful guests. This is Aaron Apollo Camp reminding y'all to write your imagination. Bye for now. You can learn more about me and my book writing projects at campaaronapollo.wixsite.com/authoraac. You can follow me on Facebook at authoraac and on Instagram at aacscribe. Copyright 2023, Aaron Apollo Camp, all rights reserved. This podcast episode is intended for the private listening of our audience. Any reuse or retransmission of this podcast episode without the express written consent of the podcast host is prohibited, except under fair use guidelines. Royalty-free music and sound effects obtained from https://www.zapsplat.com.